right, welcome to the Debrief, Carolina Journal's destination for all that's happening in state politics and public policy across North Carolina. I'm Jeff Moore, Deputy Editor of Carolina Journal, and joining me today are a team of Carolina Journal reporters. To my right, we have Teresa Opeka with the Carolina Journal. And we also have Katie Zender and Brianna Kramer, all talking about a bunch of very exciting stories this week. We've got a lot on the table, it seems, with the temperatures rising for spring. We have activity levels in politics and culture rising across the state as well. First up, we are talking about Davidson County, a high school student that was suspended for saying the term illegal alien. And that story has gone viral. We're going to talk about that. Also going to be talking about a proposal in the North Carolina Senate that should be coming up when session comes into play later this month. Proposing a constitutional amendment to limit voting to citizens only. Our Constitution is a little bit vague on that point. We also have some big VinFast developments, the mega project in Chatham County that is running into some snags as far as the planning. And finally, we'll talk about the USC Board of Governors and their vote yesterday to remove and replace language concerning DEI and what the implications for that might be. So we'll just jump right into things here with our first story. It's a viral story. It actually got covered in national news all over the country after the Carolina Journal broke the story, but it is this teenager that was suspended in Davidson County. Brianna broke the story. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, that's right. So a 16-year-old from Davidson County, North Carolina, was suspended last week for using the term illegal alien in his English class. His teacher was doing some sort of vocabulary lesson, and she used the word alien. And the 16-year-old boy responded, "Do you mean a space alien or like an illegal alien?" And apparently that sparked some sort of conflict in the class and ended up resulting in the assistant principal coming in later in the day and giving this kid a 3-day suspension from school for apparently using this term.
Now, in the 3-day suspension, they give it a justification for why they were actually going to suspend the kid for using that term. It's a legal term that we often hear and see in print.
Right. We think it has something to do with racism and offense to Hispanic kids, possibly in the classroom. His mom said in an email, quote, "Because of his question, our son was disciplined and given 3 days out of school suspension for racism." And she said he is devastated and concerned that the racism label on his school record will harm his future goal of receiving a track scholarship. So he's involved in athletics and sports and clubs. So they're concerned about that label harming him down the road for his future in college.
Yeah. And you broke this story, and then that story ended up getting picked up by some larger outlets. We saw it on Fox News. We saw even it was tweeted by Libs of TikTok and their account on X or Twitter. And then the owner of X, formerly Twitter, actually commented on it. Elon Musk commented that this is absurd. And so the story really, really blew up after you broke it. What do you think about kind of the impact and the reaction to the story going around the country?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge because people are infuriated by this. I mean, this is just wrong when, you're using one term in a classroom and not harming anybody and not doing it intentionally to harm anybody or hurt anybody. And so, yeah, it blew up on Twitter, was passed along to some really big name accounts. Yeah, we had Elon Musk talking about it even. And then, yeah, it was reported all over. Daily Mail covered it and the New York Post. So I think it just really ruffled some feathers. And Davidson County is probably in some hot water talking about this issue right now.
Yeah, imagine. That's a whole lot of attention, Teresa, on a 16-year-old kid and going viral and his pictures all over the place and having this reason. But what does the reaction tell you about kind of where we are as society and culturally, being that people thought it was so absurd in the first place that you'd be suspended? It was only a few years ago that lots of cancellations are kind of happening in this way when you use the wrong word. So what do you think about the changes between maybe 2021 and 2024 so far as those reactions?
Yeah, I think we're becoming more divided as a country. Like you say, there's the woke police, and they tend to change the terms every so often. You have migrants, you have illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. Listening to Pete Callan, our WBT, spoke to the mom right after Brianna's story broke, and he said, problem really lies with the assistant principal. He's the one designating illegal aliens to Hispanics. So he's really the one that's got the problem. It's not the teenager that's got the problem. But I think we're becoming more divided as a society, and who the woke left is deciding to call the shots on defining, different terms. And like you said, he didn't do anything wrong. He asked an honest question. He wasn't pointing out to singling anybody out.
Yeah. And being that it became such a big deal, Katie, do you think that this might have a cooling effect on administrators in high schools and other settings actually issuing such stern punishments for things of this nature? They might hesitate, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to cause them pause and cause them to stop and think, when they handle situations like this, because they don't want to become the target or they don't want to be put in the spotlight of news stories like this one.
Yeah. And it seems that we've had a lot of issues around kind of public safety and the environments at schools as far as the teachers being able to actually discipline kids. And so there's been some zero tolerance policies that have crept in that really hand down punishments like this, maybe as a response to their inability to truly affect some of the behaviors and the negative behaviors that are going on at school. So
Sure.
maybe just have a confluence of different things that ends up in this unfortunate situation. So moving on, we've got something that's tangentially related, proposal for citizen-only voting to be added to the Constitution, the North Carolina Constitution here. We had a bill last year, and Katie, you've got a piece on a reintroduction of this proposal in the North Carolina Senate that could be taken up when they come back into session.
Right, yes. So this bill was introduced originally last April by Senators Overcash, Newton, and Senator Daniel. And it is going to be reintroduced in the upcoming session by Senator Overcash. And I had a chance to speak with him, and he said that, he believes that only citizens should be voting in the state of North Carolina. And it's really as simple as that. And the voters deserve the opportunity to amend their constitution if that's what they want to do. Right now, immigration is the number one issue in the country, according to a recent Gallup poll. For the first time since 2019, it's at 28%, up only 1% from July 2019 at 27%. It's up 4% from January of this year when it was 20%. It's currently at It's up 8% from January of this year when it was 20%. It's currently at 28%. In January, it was only second to government, which sat at 21%. So this is a very, very important issue to voters this year. And this is the perfect time for really them to reintroduce this bill. And it's really closing a loophole in the current language of the Constitution. The way that the language states, it says every person born in the United States and every person who has been naturalized. Mm-hmm. So the bill, SB 630, would suggest that only a citizen of the United States who is 18 years of age and possessing the qualifications set out in this article. Now, I had a chance to talk to Dr. Andy Jackson here at the Locke Foundation about this because he's been working on this for at least the last 2 years, if not longer. And he has language suggested that says every citizen of the United States and only a citizen of the United States. That is his suggestion for the language change, although he did tell me I don't have a problem with the language in the bill.
Now, how would this be introduced and implemented? We've got legislation in the Senate, but is it a bill to change that language in the Constitution, or is it going to the ballot to ask voters?
Right. So if this bill is passed in both the Senate and the House, then it will go on the ballot and it will allow voters to make a choice on this matter.
Yeah. And we're in North Carolina on the East Coast, obviously pretty far away from the border, but we see here even that immigration is a top issue on the minds of voters. Are there any real risks that we see for non-citizen voting? Is there encouragement out there for people that are coming in illegally to vote one way or another? What have you seen there?
Yeah, so both. So actually, Brianna did an article about a month ago that said that immigration is also number one, I think, for voters in North Carolina. I think it's like 25% or something like that. But yeah, so the Oversight Project, which is a project of the Heritage Foundation, found flyers in Mexico encouraging illegal immigrants to vote for President Biden. So the Daily Signal actually broke that, I think, on Monday. Okay. So, yeah, we are seeing the dangers of that.
Yeah, so it looks good that they're moving to prevent that, especially with it being an issue that's so important to voters going forward.
And Senator Overcash also told me that this is more of a proactive approach rather than a reactive one, because it's really only going to be a matter of time until we see municipalities allowing non-citizen voting. So we're really kind of closing the door for that opportunity if this bill is passed.
Yeah, so it's better to prevent than to deal with the mess that you have later on if it does indeed become a problem.
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of kind of foreign interests in our country, we've got a development with a big commercial interest, foreign-based, in VinFast, the mega project is being built in North Carolina. It's an electric car manufacturer, but they've had some changes in their plans, Teresa. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So there's two big issues that this company's facing. It seems like they've been pretty in battle from the start. Governor Cooper and state officials had high hopes for this company. As you said, they're planning on adding 7,500 jobs, and their plans to initially turn out 150,000 vehicles in a year in Moncure in Chatham County. That was their original plan. They had it's a $4 billion site is what the total what they have. They were planning on building a 995 square foot building, but those plans got scaled back. They gave updated plans to Chatham County. That's now been reduced to a little over 782,000 square feet. So Chatham County has some questions for VinFast, and VinFast really hasn't responded. So Chatham County says, well, time out. You're not doing any more construction right now until we get those answers that we want.
Things are on hold.
Things are on hold. Yeah. So there's no construction until the permit revision is issued. I had an email from Chatham County spokesperson on that. And they haven't made, VinFast hasn't made the county aware of any changes as far as the job structure or capital investment. They are going ahead with some retaining wall construction, but the main plant, his construction is on hold. They were supposed to open this year, and they're delayed until 2025. But now with this, stoppage, who knows when it's going to open? And we had some other breaking news on this too, is that VinFast is facing a lawsuit by some shareholders. That was announced that there were lawsuits, one lawsuit jointly filed by two New York City law firms that said they basically, allegedly, VinFast deceived shareholders. Okay.
In the presentation of their financials or what they were doing?
Right. So going back a little bit to last summer, VinFast merged with Black Spade Acquisition Company. It's called like a SPAC is what the definition is. So this lawsuit on behalf of the shareholders said that they suffered financially, and the reason being amount of funding needs to expand the company's operations and an overestimation about how many vehicles would be delivered by the company last year are the reasons they stated. But also did some research on it. Mergers with SPACs rarely turn out in a good way. They usually fail. So the stock was valued at nearly $100 last August with this merger. Mm-hmm. Now it's under $3.
Oh, wow.
So that's how much it's dropped.
Quite a decline. Yeah.
It's quite a decline. It's part of, and also this whole deal was part of a JDIG grant that the state offers. But we've seen, I've done so many reporting on this, that JDIGs rarely turn out good. That means they're giving a grant, as long as they create so many jobs, usually over a 12-year period, that the state will award them so much money. They haven't awarded them the money yet, but they rarely come to fruition.
Yeah.
And what's really troubling in this is I've written on VinFast for the last 2 years, is the human interest in this. They want to rip down a 100-year-old Mary Oaks Baptist Church. People are going to be displaced with houses and businesses. Eminent domain.
Yeah.
So it's like really, really think, have a company that's really has a really good reputation. VinFast doesn't seem to have it. They've lost billions of dollars already. They're accused of polluting waterways nearby, the Haw River, drinking water for so many locations. It's just the company that's been very embattled. So we have to keep an eye on this.
Yeah. Well, central planning is hard. And so looking at mega projects and bringing in big corporations with incentives can be difficult because it looks like it doesn't always play out how they would like it to. I wonder, Katie and Brianna, if the larger kind of cooling on the electrical vehicle market, you have a lot of these producers actually modifying their plans to produce electric vehicles. Toyota notably is going to more of a hybrid model and less of a pure EV model. Do you think that may have some cooling effect on VinFast and in this kind of nascent industry Governor Cooper and others have been going after here in North Carolina as far as a clean energy kind of green economy they're trying to develop? might there be some trouble in the waters there?
Yeah, I think so. I think as Governor Cooper is kind of pushing this clean energy, green agenda, people are seeing the downsides of it, and manufacturers are seeing the downsides of it, and so they're starting to scale back. And so you're kind of having a push and pull with the administration pushing it, but everyone else is kind of pulling back.
I think there also might be something to do with market saturation. Heard that from some senators, some people talking about everybody who already has or wants an EV has an EV.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it. I know that industry giants like Ford and General Motors and Tesla have all decided to opt out and delay some of their expansion efforts for 2024.
Yeah.
And then we also have the Department of Transportation here who is pushing the EV chargers right now across the state at all major highways. So that's going to be rolled out right now. So they're recruiting businesses to put in electric vehicle chargers everywhere. So even though maybe the market is already saturated or that demand might be going down, the chargers are still going up all over. And I've also heard that maybe hybrids are the way that people are going more so because they're a little bit more reliable.
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen for some of the producers themselves. Particularly Toyota has spelled this out very specifically, that they don't think the market for the pure EVs is actually going to be that great. And so hybrids and plug-ins is where they're going to put their capital.
And they're more affordable, too.
More affordable and easier on the grid and everything like that.
Right.
So,
Prius has got a long-standing good reputation. So, I mean, it's a Toyota Prius. So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so there you have market signals that actually inform the private company's decisions versus kind of grand plans at the state level to stoke a green economy in electric vehicles and batteries and that kind of thing. So we've got a nice contrast there. Great. Well, moving on, we've got another development that deals with the UNC Board of Governors. A committee for the UNC Board of Governors voted yesterday to repeal and replace the language in their policy manual surrounding DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not fully approved yet. It's got to go to the full Board of Governors for a vote in May. But this has some pretty big implications for the university system and how it actually conducts and restricts the activities of their administrators and their faculty. This seems to be a real kind of moment that marks the tide turning on DEI as far as being institutionally embraced, especially here in North Carolina. What do you think about this move and what it might mean for the future of the University of North Carolina system and some of the reactions that have been going on about it?
Yeah, I think this is a pivotal turning point for the institutions here in North Carolina, deciding whether or not they're going to embrace, DEI. And yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to move forward from here.
I also think it's a huge part of the public university system. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond. Some interesting statistics. The North Carolina State University employs the most DEI administrators with 36 staff members just fully designated to DEI.
Right. And those positions may be at risk if they implement this new policy language.
Absolutely. And then UNC Chapel Hill, they're the second most with 35 administrators. And these staff members, their total salaries over $3 million for both of these colleges. And then the entire UNC system, the salaries total over $11 million. So, I mean, it's become a strategic plan for the entire UNC system to include DEI as part of the makeup of the school. So if that kind of becomes out of the picture, that's going to really impact a lot of staff members and how they can proceed.
Yeah. So this will be a real sea change, and it looks like that this may be an extension of some legislation that we had passed here recently that said state agencies were prohibited from making hiring decisions, promotions, things of that nature, based on about a little bit more than a dozen concepts that are rooted in critical race theory, or CRT, which informs a lot of the DEI initiatives at the universities are kind of built upon some of those concepts. So with that legislation being passed, with this being unanimously approved by the committee at the UNC Board of Governors, and the public sentiment around these issues, what do you see and what do you make of the changes that have been going on in just these last couple of years as far as the public perception of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how much that's embraced at an institutional level. Do you think it's getting better? It's getting worse? What are your thoughts?
I think public's had enough. It seems to be, and it touches on another story that I did too, and I think it got attention. Not my story per se, but Ben Shapiro tweeted it out or posted on X about even like Duke University. They wanted to only include so many. They wanted to get rid of so many white men in their medical school. And all of that, and that blew up all over the place. So I think DEI is going to slowly start, well, it already is, it's slowly crumbling. People are tired of the status quo, of being politically correct about everything, and just like treat everybody equally, period. Don't compartmentalize people in one special compartment, like, oh, you can only include so many. It was like affirmative action, kind of harkening back to the 1960s. Only you have to hire so many Black people, so many, Asian Americans, so many whatever. But I think the public is becoming fed up, and you're seeing that in all the different posts, all social media, all these stories that we're talking about.
Yeah. But being that for the last few years, there was like a full court press to get DEI offices and initiatives in operation across university and college campuses. You mentioned the stats as far as how many administrators are there. How embedded is this, and is that going to be difficult for us to imagine a university system that really doesn't have these things included in it? Because it seems like a lot of personnel and assets are wrapped up in DEI.
Yeah, there's a lot of different programs. Like I know there's library programs and trainings for professors or staff members on how to, incorporate this into the way that they conduct their classroom or the library or whatever it may be. So I think it's going to take a lot to actually enforce getting this out also.
There might be some clever workarounds as far as what they're naming different initiatives and activities and doing that.
But I do know the General Assembly is also considering taking action on this. And, so that's UNC and they may be taking action, but we also have the General Assembly. Session starts up next week, and they could possibly make some moves on DEI at all publicly funded colleges.
Wow. What are your thoughts, Katie?
Yeah, no, I agree with Teresa. I think the public is kind of tired of having it pushed on them. And I think that, the push in the last couple of years to bring this to the forefront, people are growing weary of that. And I think that they're just kind of like, okay, let's treat everyone equally. Let's not push this group or that group. But I agree.
Well, there's a lot of things happening this week, and there promises to be even more next week with the start of the legislative session at the General Assembly. So thank you for joining us here on the Debrief today. Please don't forget to visit CarolinaJournal.com for all the latest stories on state policy and politics across the state of North Carolina. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much.